everyone, welcome to Briar Haus Writes. I'm Becky Parker, and today it is my honor to be able to have poet and author with us today, Mr. Howard Carman. Howard, welcome to the program.
Thank you very much, Becky. It's an honor and a pleasure to be here.
Well, Howard, tell us a little bit about yourself.
Okay, I took up poetry and writing very late in life. I was in my 50s. I was born and raised in Memphis, Tennessee. I'm 66 years old. I grew up in the 60s and 70s in Memphis in a very time of racial desegregation and tension. And my mother's parents owned a small flower shop in a small town in northwest Tennessee, and I spent most of my formative years, summers, living with them, working in the flower shop and trying to make money for the school year. And those two things, childhood memories and the things going on when I was growing up have played a big role in my poetry. I was raised in church. My mother's tradition was United Methodist, and so I was an acolyte in the Methodist church as a child, and then we moved to a evangelical megachurch, and that drove me to atheism
Oh, no.
for a lot of my adult life. I just didn't care for that tradition. So when I went to college and I started really studying science and things, I abandoned my faith. And then a few years ago, well, 21 years ago now, my wife and I had an experience that I came back to faith, and I've spent 21 years deconstructing and then rebuilding my faith. And that also has played a big part of my desire to write and to share experiences. Um,
What are
I'm,
the topics that you typically cover when you write?
it depends. So far, I've written mostly for prompts from either workshops or contests. And so I'll write for whatever subject is in the prompt. Um, but I enjoy almost everything. But a lot of it has to do with memories, with um, spirituality, um, putting the two together sometimes. I love writing about nature, and then I love ekphrastic poetry. As we'll talk about after a while, the first ekphrastic poem I ever wrote, I didn't even know there was such a thing.
You're like, that's a cool picture. I want to write about that.
Yep. So anyway, when I went to college, I studied chemistry. I have bachelor's, master's, and doctoral degrees in chemistry. Um, and I hated literature, especially poetry, when I was in school. Um, I just didn't care for it. I was a scientist and I studied math and chemistry and had a very successful and 30-year career in the chemical research and development area at the Oak Ridge National Lab and then at Eastman Chemical Company here in East Tennessee. I went to college and graduate school in Texas, but I am a native Tennessean and I live now as far as I can be from where I grew up and still be in the state of Tennessee. Um, but I wrote the first poem I ever kept at a spirituality retreat at the Northumbria community in England, a small monastic community. And I was 52 years old at the time. That was 14 years ago. Um,
And do you remember what it was?
I do. I do. Yeah, it was on the retreat, we were challenged to walk the grounds of the mother house at this little community in the morning and then come back in the afternoon and do some sort of artistic impression of where we had seen God that morning. And some people drew pictures, some did sculpture. I wrote a poem. I just sat down and it started coming to me. At the time, I thought all poetry had to have meter and rhyme. And so it was metered and rhymed. um, as a lot of my early poetry was. Um,
Well, and speaking of writing, Howard, would you read some of your work for us? We'd love to hear it.
oh, I'd be happy to. Um, the first one I'll read was published earlier this year in Abyss and Apex. I'm going to share my screen if it's okay to share this poem because one of the lines is written in the language of mathematics. Trained in chemistry and math. Yes, this poem was published earlier this year in Abyss and Apex magazine. I want to show it because one of the lines is written in the language of mathematics. Having degrees in chemistry and physical chemistry in particular, I studied math a lot, and it's called Quantum Question. And it's a poem that actually connects my spirituality with a concept from quantum physics called wave function collapse. In a quantum world, my existence is a single stationary state whose behavior is collapsed from a superposition of all possible states, mine, yours, all who have gone before, all who are to come, perhaps even God, because of interaction with, observation by, the external world. In other words, the eigenfunction psi, which is an infinite sum over all possible states, collapses into a single eigenfunction, psi prime, where psi prime is the me you observe out of all the possibilities of who I could be, including you. It takes all of us to make me and you. Our behaviors are all motivated by different things. I need not list them, but if all our behaviors were motivated by love, would the world collapse into heaven?
Oh my gosh, that is beautiful.
Thank you. I was very pleased. John Manone, if you know John, is the poetry editor at Abyss and Apex. He's also a chemist, physicist by training, and I was really pleased that he enjoyed it also and was willing to publish it.
It's lovely. And what a concept. I love the last line. If all of our behaviors were motivated by love, would the world collapse in heaven?
This one is maybe my favorite poem of all the ones I've written so far. It was prompted at the 2019 Jumpstart workshop with the Tennessee Mountain Writers Organization. Connie Jordan Green was the workshop leader, and she gave us some examples about odes, and then challenged us to write a poem about an object that she handed us at random from a box. And she handed me a red potato. This one is called To a Red Pontiac Potato. Cold, wet, and dirty when we met, you mesmerized me. I brought you in from the rain, scrubbed your back while you soaked in a warm bath. Trembling fingers traced contours of delicate skin as I dried you with a soft towel, wiped water from your eyes. You lay naked upon my table, pink in fading sunlight, filtering through kitchen curtains. Even while anticipating the delight of young, tender flesh upon my tongue, I realized I was already in love with your russet cousin from Idaho. I enjoy writing occasionally and putting a little humor in poems.
when you put humor in a poem, it really makes people listen. So it was very good.
Thank you. So one more is, as I mentioned a moment ago, I enjoy ekphrastic poetry. This is an ekphrastic poem that I wrote before I really knew much about poetry,
Mhm.
but it was written in response to a painting that my father had painted when he retired 15 years ago at age 72 from an engineering career. He took up watercolor painting and is quite an accomplished watercolor artist, in my opinion. Um, and I will share it on the screen as well so that you can see the painting, hopefully. This was one of his early paintings. And I wrote a poem in response to it that I called Homestead. The tree is bare at the old homestead. Memories there dance through my head. A rocking chair, a feather bed, the place from where my childhood fled. The house was new, me young and bold. Through years not few, we've both grown old. The floor askew, the fireplace cold. It's the house I view, but myself behold. No longer grand, but like the tree, we both still stand, the house and me. Yet as it's planned, will soon just be, by the painter's hand, a memory.
Howard, does your dad know that you've made a poem based upon his work?
Oh, yes. Yes, he does. And he actually has this painting and this poem framed together in his home.
Oh, that's great.
It also appears in my book that I self-published a few years ago called Now I See, Rhymes and Reflections. Um,
That's great.
and
The cover of your book is gorgeous.
oh, thank you. Thank you. That is it's a photograph I took in, it's a statue of the Apostle Peter outside of where he presumably had his home in Capernaum in Israel, in Galilee. I was fortunate enough to visit there a few years ago.
Howard, in regards to your collection of poetry, you said that you published it as an independent publisher, self-publication. Um, what led you to actually publishing it in this manner, and what was the process like? Because a lot of writers are struggling to know which way to move forward with publication.
Yep. Um, at the time, as I might have mentioned, I had no intention. I wasn't a poet. I had written this poem at the spirituality retreat. It's the first poem I ever kept. Um, and then over the next several years, the muse would visit and I would write something. And in 2017, that spirituality retreat was in 2011. And in 2017, I kind of looked through my notebook and I had 25 poems that I kind of liked, um, that I wanted to share with family and friends. And I had the vision for a coffee table book, if you will.
Yeah.
And so in my book, on the left page is a photograph or a painting, and on the right page, the poem. And then along with the picture on the left page is a verse from the Bible. Um, and so I had no intentions of writing a book for public consumption. It was strictly to share with family and friends. I talked to a couple of vanity publishers and then an owner of a bookshop here in Kingsport, Tennessee, Dr. Glenn Moody, a fascinating and interesting man that had been in the book publishing industry for years. recommended that I look into self-publishing it. And at the time, there were only two options. Um, Create Space, which is now Kindle Direct Publishing, was the Amazon self-publishing arm, and then a firm, Ingram Spark, that did self-publishing. A friend of my father's had actually published a novel using Create Space, and so that's the route I chose. And the process was very easy. It was very inexpensive, and I did it.
Well, in
And,
terms
and
of doing the layouts and things like
yep,
that, um, getting it into an actual book form, did you have anyone that looked through it for you and kind of helped you with any of the sorting and knowing which poems to place first?
yep. No, I did not. I did that all myself. I did hire someone that was an editor, just to look through it and make a few suggestions on the poetry. And they did so. But I did the layout myself. I did the cover myself, all in Microsoft Word, and then at the time upload a Word document to Create Space, and it would automatically do a PDF, and then it is printed on demand, so it's available on Amazon. When you order it, they print it, and so I ordered several author copies to give to family and friends, and I still do that. I think I've sold a few, but not very many, but that was not my intent.
Right, your intent was to have something as a legacy.
Yes, exactly. And just to say, we have used the same process the last 3, maybe 4 years for the Tennessee Voices anthology, the anthology of the Poetry Society of Tennessee. We have done that through Kindle Direct Publishing as well. I've been an editor for that volume for a few years. So it was a wonderful experience. It accomplished what I wanted to. I was very happy with the result.
It's beautiful.
But I don't think I would recommend it for someone that wants to publish critically reviewed poetry or literature. I think having an established publisher and editor help you publish something that you would like to be critically accepted in a genre is pretty important. That was not my intent here, but it will be for my next work.
For your next one. And I
Yeah.
love that you worked with Connie Green because Connie has published many books, and so she would be a great mentor for you to help get you moving forward. Howard,
Yeah.
you currently serve on the board of directors for the Poetry Society of Tennessee. How did this come about, and why is it important to join other writers instead of being a lone wolf?
Well, at the risk of a too long story, I love to share how this came about, because it demonstrates, I think, why it is important to join and to network with other writers. After I published, but now I see, um, at that time, I really didn't know much about poetry. These were just mostly rhymed, metered verses that I'd thrown together to match up with the photographs, and it made a very nice coffee table book. But I wanted to learn more. I was getting ready to retire, and I wanted to learn more about poetry. I had enjoyed writing that, and so I wanted to find a writing group. And I just Googled writing groups in East Tennessee, and the Knoxville Writers Guild came up first in my search. And there's a lady, Jamie Elliott Keith, that's part of the Knoxville Writers Guild that runs a poetry group. So I emailed her, and she very promptly and graciously emailed back and said that her group was closed to new members, but she recommended I call John Manone in the Chattanooga Writers Guild at the time. And so I sent John an email, and he graciously and promptly called me one Saturday afternoon, and we talked for probably an hour. And he was very kind. and said, "Well, yep, you're welcome to join us anytime, but it's a long way from Kingsport to Chattanooga." And this was before many people were doing things by Zoom or online. And he said, "But you've got one of the best poets in the state in Johnson City at ETSU, and that's Jesse Graves. So reach out to him." So I did. I emailed Jesse, and he very kindly and promptly wrote me back and said some opportunities at ETSU, but he also said there's a branch of the Poetry Society of Tennessee here in the area. Um, Talk to Rose Clicks and Janice Hornberg. And so I found their website, saw that they were having a meeting in September of 2018, and I went to the meeting unannounced, uninvited, and they welcomed me with open arms. And I joined the society that day and have been a member ever since. Um, Janice was treasurer of the Northeast branch at the time,
Mhm.
and she helped me edit my red potato poem and in a critique group and um, being with other writers and sharing ideas and critiques and other poets and books that you know about that I might not, for me has just been crucial for helping me um, do what I would like to do with my poetry. And so you're a good example. Um, I didn't know you very well until we met at the festival back in April. But since I've been trying to watch your podcasts and your videos on YouTube, and I've been introduced to a lot of things that I wasn't aware of that have helped my writing. And, you know, workshops, readings, um, throughout the region, throughout the state. It's been fascinating and a big part of what I hope is my growth as a writer.
And who knows what connections you can make at those workshops that can actually become lifelong friends.
Yeah.
Like John Manoni, because he's been so crucial to help so many writers move their work forward, and not just poetry, but fiction and different things, because he's got so many genres behind him. It's crazy. Um, Howard, if you could change anything about this big old world we live in, what would it be?
I would find a way to eliminate intolerance. It's probably my biggest trigger. Um, Everyone and everything on this planet are a beloved gift, and we ought to treat each other that way and learn to enjoy the diversity of the human experience
Mhm.
and not be so judgmental and wanting always to be around people that look and sound and talk and think like us. Um, it's for me, it's sad that some of the division and the intolerance that we have in the world today. Um,
Maybe
it's
everyone could read your poem, and then we could have heaven on earth. Are you currently working on any project?
I am. I actually have two projects going on. One just getting started, but I am looking toward a more critically acclaimed collection. I've been writing now for a few years, and I have published some,
Hmm.
mostly in the Tennessee Voices anthologies because I've won contests. I have not published much in the literary journals, and that's my focus at the moment, is to get some of my poems in different literary journals in a broader arena, um, and then hopefully in a year or two put together a collection to publish with a publisher. I'm working with Will Wright. If you know Will, he is the founder of Blue Leaf Writing and Editing, and he is the series editor for the Southern Poetry Anthology. He did a workshop for the PST Festival last year, in 2024 is where I met him, and I have really enjoyed working with him. He has broadened my horizons and helped me improve my writing. And so working with him, I'm hoping over the next 2 years to come out with a full collection. Um, and then the second project I started not too long ago with my father. Um, my mom passed away 3 years ago, and he's had some medical issues, but he's healthy again and doing well. He'll be 88 in October, but he has been prolifically painting for a while. And we recently got together, and he has given me note cards that he's made of 30 of his paintings. And so far, I have written ekphrastic poems for 3 of them. I'm hoping to write 27 more poems and then publish an ekphrastic poetry book of poems that I write in response to my father's paintings and publish it together. And so I'm excited about that possibility, but I've got to get busy.
You do. And I love the fact that you're doing it as father and son. What an amazing legacy for you both.
Yep. We're both pretty excited about trying to pull it off.
I love that very much. Well, Howard, thank you so much for taking the time to spend with us here at Briar House Writes. And I just cannot wait to see those two books in publication. And then when they,
Well,
you'll have to come back and show us.
okay, well, thank you, Becky, for this invitation and for all that you do to help bring us all together and learn from each other. It's a wonderful resource, and I appreciate the work you put into it, and I very much appreciate a chance to be here today. Thank
Oh,
you.
well, thank you.